Well, welcome this morning to Experts. Great to see everybody. Mr. Burkett, nice to see you. Beard game strong. Appreciate that. Tasha's just looking like she's out there getting stuff done. Drew is just sitting, which I'm not gonna point any fingers, Drew. Like Tasha's out there getting stuff done, and you're sitting, which is cool. Good to see everyone this morning. And those of you who don't know Taran, let me fill you in a little bit. So where Collab team started with coffee was through Roasters Coffee up in Tri-Cities. And the way that we started with coffee was through Taran and Wes. So Wes is the owner of Roasters, and Taran was his right-hand dude. Taran had helped him grow it up to the 5 locations it was, right? 5, Taran? You're at 5 with Southridge? Is that what that was?
When I left?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were at 6 in a roaster.
6 in a roaster. So, and Taran was moving to the greater Seattle area. And which I always our inside joke. Sorry. So Taran was moving, and Wes was like, hey, I need you to extract out of my key guy a bunch of his information because I'm nervous about what I don't know that he does know. And so I said, okay, well, let me sit down with Taran. And as I sat down and started pulling him through the gap analyzer, I realized, dude, this is a smart dude. In fact, if you're moving to Seattle and it's not going to piss off Wes, what do you think about coming and working with me? And so I scooped on Taran, and we pulled him a total different way. Didn't do anything with coffee. In fact, did real estate flipping and some different things that we were doing with some other gurus online and handling all their operations, because the collab team does a lot of different operations for a lot of different verticals. And pulled Taran into real estate stuff and like bus tours and events. And then it kind of merged into us doing more and more with the online space. And then, but also I'm still growing coffee. And then for those of you who've met Ben, obviously you've been on Experts the last couple of weeks, Ben is Taran's protege. So as I extracted all the information from Roasters out of Taran, I pushed it out into a couple of guys in Wes's organization. Ben was one of those guys. And then the litany goes down, because then like Ben became Drew. Like Drew then became the next like guy on the totem pole as Drew was coming up in the ranks of barista, and then manager, and then manager over the largest location for Roasters for some years, and then regional manager over several locations for Roasters. That's kind of the origin story. It all kind of origins back into Taran Turner. I mean, so Taran, hats off to you for the blessing of bringing us all into these things. And Taran's stepping in this week as Ben is also in France, inspired by Taran. Ben bounced out for a few weeks on a vacation with his wife to France. So pretty exciting stuff. A lot of movement in the collab team going on. Drew, when are you going to France?
As soon as I'm done here in Reno.
Well, Reno and France are very similar, bro. Like very, very similar, just so you know. Ben's posting all these Paris pictures. I think I saw some of it down in Reno. So Drew, is it snow in Reno?
It snowed all day yesterday, on and off, flurries. Today it's sunny and nice. So I mean, it's still freezing, but it's sunny and beautiful.
Drew reached out yesterday. He's like, I don't know where you put me, bro, but like, it is weird. It was like 80 degrees on Sunday, and it snowed all day yesterday. So anyway, welcome everybody. Hey, so just want to kick off some topics today, and we're going to just keep this pretty casual as Experts usually is, but I want to talk today about consistency, because I think it's really important. I think if you asked me what the one thing was that I could give you, if I just could give you just one knowledge bomb of truth. Last week on Collab's Who's Who on Facebook, we dropped an interview between me and Taran. I'm like, what's your one knowledge bomb? And Taran's like, you can find everything on Google. And I said, great, that means they don't need us. Thanks for that, Taran. But my knowledge bomb that I would drop on you is consistency. I feel like is the magic. If you can just stay consistent, things work. What I found is when you get inconsistent, that's when it starts creating all kinds of chaos. And I think that sometimes the pain point could be, as an owner or somebody running things, is that you just assume your people have got it. You've taught them. You're expecting them just to do the things you've left them to do. But what I found is if you're not just consistent and you just don't hold people to consistent check and balances, it's not like you're trying to micromanage. It's not like you want to do their work for them. You don't even need to necessarily tell them what to do. You just want to make sure that they're being consistent with what you've left them. So that way that things can continue to move forward. Otherwise, there's the devil's in the details, right? Like you stop meeting with people, you stop check and balancing what they're supposed to be working on. And then what happens is that they aren't working on the things that you assume they were working on, and things begin to atrophy and fail and fall and do all those different things. So I'm just going to share my sheet real quick. As true to the form of Experts, we're going to talk through the tool. So we've been reviewing the Smartsheet, the 5-star, and I'm just going to go over something on it real quick, give you a little bit just practical application of what I mean by consistency, and then spin it loose onto Taran about consistency, maybe talk to Drew about that, and then we'll look over some of the questions that have come up in the Slido. If you have not put in your comments on Slido yet, I think, Taran, I think this is the link. So I'm going to drop it here for you. You're more than welcome to drop your questions there. Maybe somebody click on that and make sure that worked right. But these are the questions that are coming in. You can also upvote ones that are important to you or add ones that you would like us to address more towards the end of the call today. So we're back to the Smartsheet, the new locations 5-star. This is the upgrade. So it has all the assets tucked into it. And the thing I want to start with talking about today is new location construction. Any of you who have people that are contractors in your family, I mean, no disrespect, because my dad is a contractor, like my dad owns construction. Usually people in construction have the best hearts, right? For the most part, I mean, good quality guys, right? Good old boys, they will shoot the shit with you for days. Like they will just talk your ear off. Sometimes though, because of that, the pain point can be is that they end up overextended. They've committed to too many people, that they'll get too many things done, and then timelines fail. And so I'm just going to show you real quick a tool that I use when it comes to consistency with contractors, but you can use it for all different kinds of meetings. Any of you who've been on meetings with me, you've seen my format. I've dropped it here. So you can click on that and check it out if you want within the document, within the 5-star. I'm going to open it up here for you. So this is just my standard way that I do notes, do meeting notes. Oh, thanks for correcting my link, Taran. So this is what I'd always recommend. I'd recommend, and here's one that's kind of more built out, so you can see date over date, week over week. I'll drop a new tab for each week worth of notes. And then for me, as I'm taking notes for people, I usually am highlighting deliverables. So when we walk out of there, everybody knows what I'm going to ask them about next week. You know, and then as you slide down on my notes, I'll always talk about delivers highlight above. And then typically we're going to go over whatever was assigned last week, you know, down below. So this is my format of meetings. And this probably isn't the best page to start with. I think on the example I chose a different, I did here. So for me, I'll always drop in tools. Like if I want to be talking about their proposal, let's just put the tool in the notes. If I want to be talking about equipment that I want in the location, let's just drop it in the notes. That way it's someplace easy to grab. And then we'll talk through, I'll usually drop in there my topics of what I want to discuss with whoever I'm meeting with. And so for here, it's, hey, Jarek was going to be putting his eye on the laminates. Did that happen? And this is what the contractor told me the schedule would be. So usually I'm always reviewing the schedule. I think I dropped in a timeline. Yeah. So, you know, this is a typical schedule that we might see for construction, where they're going to give me key dates held by different trades that are going to be hinging on each other, right? Because if the window guy doesn't finish his install, it's hard for the EFIS guy then to wrap. You know, and so there's going to be some different pieces that are all contingent on each other, and then some things that might run in parallel, but you need to be asking them about their schedule. Like, don't just assume because they gave you a schedule at the beginning, they're sticking to their schedule, because a lot of times there's mass slippage within schedules. A lot of times as a general, you're managing multiple trades, and it's very, very easy to talk fast and be like, yeah, so the EFIS guy, he had this thing going on this side of town, but don't worry, he's going to be here and he's going to do his brown coat and he's going to da-da-da-da-da. And they talk really fast, but what they just told you and what they feel like they've committed to you is the timeline slipping, you know, and you may or may not have gathered that from that conversation. What he just rolled out at you, you thought you were just shooting the shit and talking about this, some guy that's got some thing going on the other side of town. But in fact, what they were telling you is, hey, we just slipped by 2 weeks. And so what you always want to be doing is, hey, sometime in this conversation, and you don't have to be jerky about stuff. I'm not saying you should be like some kind of jerker, like you need to get this done. I found that yelling and waving your arms and getting crazy, all that does is piss people off. But I found that if you'll just be consistent, ask people consistently about the same thing over and over again, and then put the screws to them, hold them to it. Hey man, so you told me asphalt was going to be poured this week. That's why I've got the sign guys coming in behind you. If you don't get your guys out there, you're going to throw off my schedule with the sign guys. And then I'll just begin to fall on like talking to them about, you're making me look bad. You're making me look like I don't know how to hold a schedule. You're making me look like I've told the people I have to answer to that I'm going to get this done, you know, and just coming and calling out from a compassionate based side of things, or saying, hey man, I just need you to do it. I just need you to stick to this, you know, and just calling to their better nature. Most contractors that you get I would say don't always go with the cheapest. Most contractors that you go with are ethical dudes. They don't want you to be talking bad about them around town. So if you can just hold them to, hey, all I'm asking you to do is what you said you would do. How are we doing with the timeline? So this one here, this is a great example. Nate from Baker said, a Vista may affect the timeline, building's fine, but the site work might be affected. So he's going to keep me in the loop. I'm not going to let him slip on that. I'm going to make him talk to me about that next time we meet. Next meeting, I'm going to be asking Nate, how are we looking with the Vista and how are we looking with the site work? I think that's really important. And then just talking about somebody else opening up on the lot, won't be signing until spring, like just, and then I'll also drop in here other meetings that I've had that would lead up to this. Did we fix the walk-in fridge? Did we retire the counter notification? That was then Procore. A lot of them will use systems that you're managing. Did Nate receive the first part of the lights? Did Nate, receive the Rhino rinser? Did the 220 go in? Just asking consistent questions. And then next week when Nate and I meet, I'm going to come back and I'm going to have answers here. And if not, that's not going to drop off until I get answers. I'm going to keep asking them that question. And nobody likes that. Nobody likes being in a meeting with 4 or 5 people and to look like they're not bringing back answers. So my encouragement to you guys, whether you're in this or, whether it's contractors, whether it's people that you manage, whether it's managers managing baristas, whatever it is that you're doing, having consistent meetings once a week or once every couple of weeks with deliverables that have to be fulfilled by the next time you meet. I cannot emphasize that hard enough, because that's how you get your goals accomplished. Otherwise, if you let things slip, then it's going to have bigger implications. So I wanted to show you guys a real working example of, this was a Smartsheet. This is a 5-star upgrade for Outsider Coffee when we opened their location here in Medford. And I just wanted to show you guys this real quick, whether it's, you go down the filter and you see, oh, wait a minute, Taran didn't do anything on this one. Just kidding. Taran did do a lot on that one, but I don't know how his filter got shut off. But like whatever it is that you've assigned out on this sheet should have a date, should have a name with some accountability. And if it's going into overtime, right? Red is overtime. You should have some updates on why that is. We decided to move away from Luke actually creating for us storage. So that's why this one never got finished. But there should be a note of why that hasn't happened yet. Otherwise, obviously, this is all in the rearview mirror. But I just wanted you guys to see, I think it's not just contractors, it's what's CJ working on and how is his percentages working? And does he give us a reason why his stuff is, and these are owners, like these aren't like peons, like these are the main people that are running things. But I think that it's important to see people have dates, people have things that they're accountable for. Lindsay, we really loaded a bunch on. But that was a lot of her deal. So she was, doing the hiring, doing the staff development, putting together the aesthetics, working on the marketing, stocking the new location, but just giving people key dates, assigning them out to them, giving them accountability on what percentage we have this done, and then let them mark it off as complete, because it feels good, right? When you check off things, it just feels good. So I want to give you guys just some kind of working examples. Once again, my example for how to take notes is dropped into the five-star upgrade here at the new construction. Taran, do you want to talk a little bit about, you and I were talking about consistency a little bit, and you said it's not only just contractors and it's not just managers or people opening stands, but it's also some of the vendors from your experience. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, what we discovered when we started branching out at roasters was the consistency of products was starting to decline. We had managers, they're kind of operating in silos, and it turned out the owner, he was too busy running the company to really drill down and have a lot of oversight into each manager and making sure all the managers were managing the stores correctly. So they had different vendors we had to combine. They were ordering different products. So one of my first jobs was just going in there and lining out the vendors, lining out the approved products, what they should be carrying, so that we had consistent products at every store. One of the worst compliments I hated receiving when I'd work at my store was, oh, you make this drink so much better than the other store. It was like, sure, that's a compliment, but I want the other store to be able to make a drink just as good as I do. Mm-hmm. So we really had to dial in what everybody was doing, make sure everybody was consistent, and starting with vendors and what they could order, and then going to training, going to hiring, all that.
Yeah. Drew, you want to talk about that a little bit? Maybe just about your experience with consistency. I know you and Tasha are punching at some things down there in Reno and just like really dialing in consistency down there. And is just a badass. Tasha's amazing at everything she does, but I think that like there's the need too, for like, no matter how great you are, like consistency is something we're all working towards, right? None of us are perfect, right? So we're all evolving in this progression towards how can we just standardize things to keep them steady so that the foundation is strong, and then enable us just to love on our people, right? That's the key, like Corey was talking about last week. Like if your systems are janky, or if your systems are messy, or if things are inconsistent, it distracts you from the reason that you're there, which is to serve people. So I know, Drew, that's your passion. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I found in managing stores and from going to managing managers, consistency is key in almost everything that has to do with systems and operations, because it keeps everybody accountable. If you have your managers who are having inconsistent meetings, then you notice inconsistencies in their stores. And if you as a manager are having inconsistent meetings, then you'll have inconsistencies between anything from communication to accountability with duties in the store. So one thing that I found really useful is giving people the tools to help them be consistent until they can be creative enough to find the best ways for them to be consistent. For example, my managers, when I was managing, I set a certain day of the month. I actually inherited it from the Richland store. They did the first Wednesday of every month. We held meetings, and it had been that way for years, and it worked for me and it worked for the store. So we kept it that way. And so when I, was managing the managers, I gave them the task of, hey, find the day that is best for your stand every month and have the meeting that day every month at the same time, so everybody knows what to expect. And keep yourself accountable by having certain things to talk about in the stores, and to be consistent on the topics and to build off of the previous topics. If you have consistency in your meetings, then you can just always be moving forward. If you're inconsistent, you might double cover topics or miss important topics, or if you're not consistent, you're going to lose things that are very important. So consistency in your meetings for me has been huge, because it's helped me move forward and grow, and grow the people that have been working with me. And consistency is huge. It's a big deal.
Corey, you've done a lot of meetings, like as far as like how you've held meetings. I know you've always talked about culture is important to you. You have anything you want to throw in there as far as culture and consistency and meeting cadence and how you do things?
Yeah, a couple of comments. One, when I was working for BlackRock corporately, part of my oversight was the franchise director. And as people would reach out inquiring about franchising with BlackRock, I would always focus on two things: the cultural integrity and the operational integrity. And that's where you're going to get consistency throughout, an experience for the barista, as well as, that guest that's coming through every day. And those were two things that I just reinforced when I opened up my own location in Eugene, was the operational integrity and the cultural integrity. And I'm a big believer in rhythms. So you got to have a consistent rhythm. That way it keeps everybody in the same lane and everybody knows what to expect. And that consistency part, I think, is absolutely huge. It's probably one of the most critical parts, because there's an accountability there. Everybody knows what to expect. And one thing that I really focused on with the team that I developed was a mutual accountability. And that comes as a result of consistency, but it's a top-down trickle effect, right? Whoever that key leader is, they're the ones that's setting the tone. They're the ones that are initiating those things. And the more consistent that you are in that role, the more consistent other things will become. Language, right? You start using the same language. And there was definitely an acronym that I created for my team, and I just kept pounding that in to create that consistency across the board.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I talked to a guy earlier this week who was talking about some of his frustrations with management through the years, and a lot of his frustration came out of managers or people above him coming in unprepared, or just like rolling in and like shooting from the hip, and then like the content was poor, like he didn't feel well invested in it. It felt like a waste of his time for showing up, and I think that's something really for all of us who are running things, to put a little headspace into what are you going to talk through? What are the key things? And not that you have to do all the talking, because I think that sometimes there's always that, and I can totally fall Achilles to this, it doesn't mean you have to talk the whole time. like stir up conversation. What do you want people to be talking about? Like, what are the things that, what are the content points that you want to discuss? And then stir it up in people. You know, I think some of the best meetings I'm on is where it's just people are just showing up prepared, but authentic, bringing valid concerns, not afraid, like making sure you're taking all the sacred cows out of the room. You know what I mean? Like, we're here to talk about anything. Is there a pain point? Let's talk about the pain point. Like, and just being able to work that through. And if you don't have an answer in the moment, no problem. I'll make sure I bring that back next time we talk. And then making sure you as the leader are jotting down what that was that they were asking about, and make sure you don't just let that fall by the wayside, because people remember that stuff. People remember when they asked you something and you told me to bring it back to them. And when you don't, it looks like either you don't value them or you don't have a good answer. And probably it's neither of those things. You probably do have a good answer and you do value them. It's just you're not making the time to be thoughtful and write things down and make sure you come back with intention. So could one of you guys share maybe just like how you run your manager meetings? Like when you do, so probably there are two different meetings, not just your manager meetings, but how you as a manager run your monthly meetings, or however, what your cadence is. I know, Taran, maybe in your era, or Drew for sure in yours, there were dinners, like you guys did dinners where you guys would either bring food in or you'd meet someplace. What would you guys talk through at some of your, like just some real nuts and bolts framework of, this is the kind of stuff we would cover in this kind of a format?
Well, for actually part of my consistency was creating a little worksheet for myself for my monthly meetings to have topics to cover and ideas to keep myself consistent. So I'd always, start with some sort of team bonding, some sort of, game or story, just to get everybody comfortable. It's, short 5 to 7 minutes. And then we cover policies, procedures, anything that was new that we were rolling out, or anything that we've been slipping on in the store, and any concerns baristas have brought to me over time. And structure in the shop of who, what, and why, and when, expectations. We go into our core values. I love to cover our core values, because keeping consistent core values was healthy, and it really showed in the stores when the baristas knew the core values and held them to a high esteem. We talk about promos, just keeping things, rolling, so every barista was aware. And anyone who missed the meeting would get a text of a recap of what we talked about. Cultivation, so that was a big one for me, was keeping everybody, moving in the same direction. Everybody steering the ship in the same way, so we're not, losing things and missing pieces. Covering any problematic situations that we'd had throughout the month. Talk about the guests and the importance of the guests. Talking about service and the importance of service. Everything we did revolved around top-notch service. At least the stores that I worked in, we'd always try to provide the best service. So I like to talk about the things that would help people develop in their lives as well. So little things, accountability for yourself. That was a big one for me. Being disciplined in the things that you appreciate and the things that you like. And, if you have discipline in your life, then it's going to show, and you're going to, bring it into the store, and vice versa. If you like what you do in the store, then, it'll rub off into your life, and you'll just be consistent, you'll be disciplined, and you'll be a lot happier if you can find the value in the things that you're doing.
I like that. Sometimes I feel like the word discipline can bring a negative connotation, but I feel like discipline is really important when it comes to consistency as well. And not like discipline, you're in trouble and let me shame you and let me make you feel like a heel and let me like come down hard on you. But just like, no, discipline just means we're going to stay in the framework. Like how are you doing with your framework? Like I'm just here to hold you accountable. All of us have goals that we're shooting towards, whether it be weight goals, that we're shooting for in our physical, whether it be like financial goals that we're shooting for, whatever it is, that each one of us have disciplines or rigors that we apply to ourselves. And it's just that accountability check-in. And yeah, there may be consequence at times when you fall out of that discipline. But I think even in that, it's for the sake of helping people come back to the framework, right? Come back to the discipline of what's going to give us best ability to serve the people we're here to serve. So does anybody want to maybe talk about discipline a little bit, and how you mete out discipline, or how you address when people are failing when it comes to key metrics that you're expecting them to hold?
I want to draw out two things, one that you touched on, Aaron, and then another one that Drew just touched on. And I think that this falls in with the discipline part. One, where Aaron, you said you don't have to do all the talking. Mm-hmm. If you're in that key leadership role, there are two things that I think should be your primary focus: equipping and empowering. Because the more that you can equip and then release that power to those individuals, the better the chance that the organization has to grow. But if you're coming in and you're doing all of the talking and you're coming in and micromanaging, then you're not empowering your potential leaders that are raising up within your organization. So you want to have both. You want to equip them, and then you want to empower them. So when you're setting up your meetings, task them with different topics to discuss and lead the discussion. And that's a huge way. And then Drew, you'd mentioned that about the values. I think always reiterating the why, every opportunity that you get, the why, the why to why you're making those drinks every single day is hugely important. And I think that the discipline part starts with you as the leader. Like, you need to be the example. You're not above any task. You're not above any role. You're not above any responsibility. One thing that I really appreciated when I opened up my coffee location, here I am as a franchisee, but then I have the CEO and the COO of BlackRock literally shoulder deep with a garbage bag over their shoulder, digging in my grease trap because my floor sinks were backing up. Like, that for me spoke a lot to me of just that kind of leadership. So I think that when it comes to discipline, we need to focus on ourselves first. What kind of disciplines do we have? And are we being consistent in those? Because that comes out in the way that we communicate. That comes out in the way that we construct our meetings and lead our leaders.
Good. It's good stuff. Anybody else have something they want to add? Taran, Turner, you want something? Liz, your dogs in the background remind me of my dogs all day long. I've got two.
I'm so sorry.
No, you don't be sorry. I've got two yellow labs, and they wrestle, fight, chase all day long in my background. I'm like, you guys got to knock it off. So that's why I'll come upstairs and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to have to just ignore them. So.
I've been yelling at them. I'm really sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry about anything. I think it's amazing. I love it. I just wanted to note that, yes, it's not just me, Taran, who has dogs.
Like, I am listening. Do not listen to them.
Aaron, I'll add this on the discipline part. Like, this is always the hard part when it comes to discipline, is bringing that correction, right? Because it requires conflict, and conflict is not a bad thing. And that's one thing that we need to rewire in the way that we think of conflict. Conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict is an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to become better. So when it comes to discipline, I mean, the practice of discipline is bringing in that correction. Mm-hmm. And when an operational thing is being done incorrectly, or a drink making process is being done incorrectly, like, that needs to be corrected. And my encouragement is, it's so much easier to discipline that when it's the size of an ant as opposed to the size of an elephant. But what happens is that, again, that takes confrontation, which is uncomfortable for a lot of people. And so we let it go unresolved. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about the enemy to discipline is letting things go unresolved, because then these bad habits, these bad forms start to take place. So don't be afraid of that conflict. Understanding that discipline takes calling out and correcting those actions.
I love that. Taran Turner, what do you got? What do you think about that? What do you think about discipline, correction, talking to people, all those different pieces? Or if there's another piece that resonated with you?
I think there's also the conflict you find within baristas when you're working with people in their late teens, people who come from all different backgrounds, and they're working side by side for 5 hours. You might end up with people butting heads. And it's important to deal with that immediately too. And you can sit them down, you have a little conflict resolution meeting. And the important thing I learned was similar to what Corey was saying, like, when there's conflict, that means they care. Or like, when somebody's upset or it affects them, that means they care. And caring's good. So talk it out. If you care about it, that's a good sign. And we just want to work through it. So definitely conflict between, your baristas too. You want to sit them down and deal with that.
That's good. I think what you just said too right there is really key, Taran. I think conflict is fine if you've already established a culture of care, like that you care about them. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when you're sitting down with people, I'll always start, if I've got to call somebody on something, I'll be like, hey, I just want you to realize I super value who you are, and I value what you're doing. And there are a lot of things that you're doing great. We're going to talk about some things that may make you a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. Like, let's talk them through. I want to hear where you're coming from, but this is where I'm coming from, and as somebody that's supervising you, and concerns that I have and things that I feel like need to change. And I found when you can disarm people by communicating that you care about them. Now, if you've been communicating that you don't care about them with your actions, then your words just become placating, right? Like they're not going to take your words. Like if you haven't been valuing them as a human, and then you're like, I really care about you, and I'm about to kick you in the ass. Like nobody likes that. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to know that you've been valuing them. So I think checking your heart, like Corey, you were saying earlier, like that inner discipline of you as a leader before you roll it out to your people is super key. But I think too, starting it with who they are as a person, why they're valuable to you, the good things that you are seeing in them, but that there are some things that you feel like you need to talk about for the sake of them elevating, for the sake of them being better. You're not here just to make them feel bad about themselves. That doesn't serve anybody well, right? You just rub somebody's nose in how they failed and make them feel like just a heel. But what do you think the performance is going to be like on the other side of that? Either they're going to operate from fear or they're going to operate from hatred. Like, but it's going to be one of those two things. Like either afraid you're going to shame them again, but that's also probably going to be coupled in with they're going to resent you for how you confronted them. You know, so I think if you come into them like realizing it's not going to always work out, sometimes you're going to have to fire people. You can't just give people a bunch of opportunities to fail. Like you're running a business, not a charity. But at the same time, valuing as humans and giving them opportunity to elevate, I think is super key.
Yeah, but the more you respect your people and the more you respect what you do and the why that you do it, the more serious people will take what they do too. Like Corey said, it stems from you, the disciplined leader.
I found a lot of times people leave on their own. Like if you have 2 or 3 conversations with them where you come from that angle of valuing them, bringing up the things that you're concerned about, and then when they don't see progress, what they end up saying is, you know, I just don't think this is probably going to be a fit for me. And then you can just say, you know, I think you're probably right. And man, I wish you all the best, and feel free to call on me, and I'd love to help you with anything you need help with, but better for you, better for us. Awesome. Anybody, anything else you guys want to tie up with that? And we can bounce into Slido and some of the questions that have come through. Yes, true. One thing.
One thing. I think, you know, the more consistently you hold people to a high standard, the more it shows that you actually believe in their potential too. So if you're consistently telling people, hey, you know, maybe you're doing these things wrong, this is how you do it right. Let me work with you. Let me guide you. I believe that you can do this the best way possible. The more that they actually start to believe in themselves too. And that's, I think, a huge part of at least what we do.
Super good. And I think too, I mean, so I'll be super honest with all you guys, is I can have the tendency to be an enabler. Like I can have the tendency to just pick up the slack for people. You know what I mean? Because I love people. I don't like them feeling bad about themselves. It's not a big deal. I'll just take that on, you know, but what I don't realize in enabling people is that I'm actually robbing them of their potential too. You know what I mean? What I've said then is, I recognize you're not going to be able to do this. I'm going to take it upon myself. It elevates my own self-esteem of what I think of myself, instead of, no, this, you own this. This is yours. And yeah, I can help you shoulder things over time, but it needs to be yours to own. You know, I can't take ownership back. Otherwise, I'm communicating that I don't believe in you indirectly. You know, so I think that's good. It's a good point, Drew. Awesome. Let's check out some stuff real quick.